Hey guys, I'm Teun. I'm a product manager at Litentry. And what do we do at Litentry? Well, we're an identity aggregator. We're a decentralized identity aggregator, and we provide you with the structure and the tools to start owning your own identity and to make your identity tangible without it being seen. I was never in Berlin before this. I arrived a weekend ago, and your city is wild. I'm very happy to be here. And today I'll be giving you some insights in what's going to happen as soon as an identity layer gets added to the Web3 tech stack. And it's going to have big changes for NFT entrepreneurs, Web3 entrepreneurs, Discord degens, flippers. The whole space is slightly going to change when that identity layer gets added. Now, I'll be also giving you some use cases and be dropping some alpha at the end of this presentation. But beforehand, I need to make you aware of some basic concepts, some basic principles that you'll get to know so I can take you along in this storyline. And we'll start with a mental model or a way to look at our digital space or age. And the mental model to understand the digital age is the following. It's all about bundling and unbundling. The way you make money, the way you innovate, the way you disrupt, it actually mostly in the digital age happens through the bundling of data or the unbundling of data. And I'm going to take you to some tangible use cases, or tangible examples. And the first one is the internet itself. The internet itself was probably the biggest bundling event in human history. All of a sudden, we started gathering magazines, traditional media, brick and mortar stores. We started giving them an interface on the internet. Another good example is the MP3 format. What did it do? It unbundled the CD. It disrupted the music industry and changed the face of it forever. One that is familiar to all of you is Amazon. What did Amazon do? Amazon started bundling all consumer products on one web shop, so you could cut down on shopping time, get some extra free time, and that's the type of business they were into. One of my personal favorites is Udemy. Udemy, YouTube, podcasts. What are they doing? They're unbundling traditional college degrees into specific knowledge fields, so you can get expertise in what you're exactly looking for at the time that you want it. And maybe one of your personal favorites, OpenSea. OpenSea is bundling all NFTs and artists again in one of the biggest unicorn startups that we have ever seen in this emerging industry. So you get the gist. It's about bundling and unbundling. So what happened when Satoshi Nakamoto started popularizing the blockchain concept? He unbundled all centralized databases. He started unbundling them into transparent state machines that we could interact with. He started unbundling all centralized identity data. And it has severe consequences for us because we all know that in the Web 2 environment, we were actually the product of our favorite fan companies. Every like, tweet, click, it was stored into our personal digital identity. We were productized, we were segmented into audience, and we were sold to their advertisement partners. That's all pretty cool because we got a seriously engaging experience for it in return. We got their free products, but we never got a slice of the pie. We never got a piece of it. And that's changing in Web3 because this time we're switching from being a data provider to these companies to being a data owner. It's up to us to decide when we're lending out that data, when we're giving access to that data. So that's all nice. We've been turning these databases into transparent state machines. We are operating on them with anonymous wallets, with pseudonymous wallets, but we still face this big problem, the privacy. It's super transparent, and as soon as you give out one wallet address, somebody actually knows almost everything about you. How could you avoid that? Well, you can start working with super healthy wallet hygiene, splitting it up in public addresses, private addresses. You can start creating new wallets as soon as you log into an application. That makes a lot of sense, but we are losing this complete rich on-chain history about ourselves. It's scattered across so many wallets. And as I said, sharing your wallet address when you enter an application, we would actually like you to stop doing that, because it shows your complete Web3 behavior if you only use one wallet, and we're losing a lot of the upside there. We would like to help you share your identity like you would share it in real life. We would give you better tools. We would like to help you doing it in a better way. Because when you're sharing your identity in real life, you start slowly. You start with the easy parts. You don't give away everything straight away. When you're on a first date, you're not telling them that last night you also saw your mom on Twitter. You know, you ease into it. And that's what we also want to do in Web3. Now, what are the consequences of this privacy problem that we're facing? It, as I said, creates a big lack of identity data. We don't know anything about the user in front of us. We don't know anything about them in order to customize their experience. We don't know what their favor. We don't know what their characteristics are. We don't know who is that user that is jumping into our Discord, aside from his nickname and maybe an NFT or a PFP. And you can say, yeah, we got the punks, we got the apes, we got the whole freaking zoo, but it doesn't really tell us anything about them. What we want to know is we want to see verifiable behavior across time. We want to know what this user is about. We want to see what is soulbound, what is unique to him, what is earned and not bought. And that's where we're trying to go. Now, how do we solve that problem? To solve that problem, I need to introduce you to a couple of Legos or primitives in the identity space to solve this problem. And where do we start? We start with that self-sovereign identity. That identity that you own, that you control. And there are two main primitives underneath that empower that identity, and it's one, the identifier, or the decentralized identifier. It's a string, it's a location of where certain identity data is stored. And once we start combining these two primitives, we can really start going. So the decentralized identifier, you should see it as a globally unique, persistent identifier that doesn't need a centralized authority, that is usually cryptographically registered. So to make it a little bit more tangible, and this is abstract, but we'll look into it. Here, this string, it's telling you that we're talking about a DID. It's telling you that Litentry is providing a method to register and to offer that DID, and that the hash string that is following is leading to a certain piece of information on chain. So what does that DID actually do? Well, it tells you that someone is claiming something about something. It's pretty abstract, okay? But in the end, I'm going to give you some use cases and give you some examples of how that would work. So that DID is going to lead to our second part, the identity data itself, or the on-chain verifiable credential. And that on-chain verifiable credential is where it gets interesting. See it as a small detail about yourself, a little piece of information that tells something about a certain asset that you hold, a profile that you match, a characteristic that that applies to you. And where do they live? Well, they live in the locations of your wallet addresses, in the locations on the blockchain. Your on-chain history, you could start looking at it or thinking about it as the Milky Way, a sky full of stars. It's a dark forest, and as long as nobody knows who the wallet address is attached to, they kind of don't know anything about that person. It's just data that doesn't make sense. But it's exactly because Satoshi Nakamoto started unbundling all databases that you now, with verifiable credentials, can start bundling all of your verifiable credentials into profiles and little pieces of information that do make sense without showing those original addresses that they come from. And that's what we want to help you do. We want to help you bundle your verifiable credentials into tangible identity data so that you can just share that and stop sharing your complete wallet address. So we're going to help you share what you want, when you want, with who you want. And that could look like this in the near future. I'm first going to give you a quick introduction about the verifiable credentials as well in terms of their hierarchy. So if we would look at, for example, the Litentry wallet address, so we have a parachain or a blockchain, and addresses live on there. What lives in the address of the Litentry parachain? The verifiable credentials that you own certain accounts, that you are an owner of a Twitter account, an owner of a Reddit account, an owner of a blockchain account. What does that help you with? It helps you proving that the history or the on-chain history that is living in those accounts, that you can start generating verifiable credentials out of that data. So it helps you to start communicating with these low-resolution details about you, with this low-resolution identity details about you, and stop sharing those complete wallet addresses, but just share a profile, a certain characteristic about your NFT holding time, or your favorite NFT. So next time when you're logging into an application that makes use of the new tools that are going to be added to the Web3 tech stack, you can log in and tell them, hey, I'm not a wallet address, but I am a long-term NFT holder because 80% of all of my NFTs are being held for over a year. I was part of the ENS airdrop. I was in the know pretty early on, and I got a nice 1,000 followers on crypto Twitter. Because all of those facts, you can prove with a verifiable credential, generate them, and just communicate that. So you're thinking, when alpha, right, where's these use cases? This was a long introduction into getting to the meat of it. Well, what's that gonna do for you as an NFT artist and as an enthusiast, as a Web3 entrepreneur? You'll need to get into a conversation. You're gonna have to find a consensus between that user that now really starts owning his own identity data and starts to value it and starts to know what he can get in return. So you have to make both parties comfortable. You'll have to make sure that you ask for some details that are more in depth about a person, not as much as in breadth. You don't want to know what shitcoins they got. You don't want to know all the tops they've bought, all the bottoms they've sold. Let them hide this, but you want to know what type of NFT trader they are. Do they like a certain aesthetic? What are they all about? And as a user, you get the chance to really make that, how should I say it? The comparison between, do I want to maintain my privacy, or do I want maximum leverage out of all of my identity data? And that conversation is going to be a very interesting one. So how does that look like? Well, imagine that the next time you're in Discord, you actually start to know people. And people can drag followers, likes, karma, other kudos that they have built in other platforms into other environments. So you could start, for example, generating a verifiable credential that proves that you have over 9,000 karma on Reddit. And that starts to mean something. You can get an idea of who is actually in front of you. If an NFT whale or a collector steps in and he can show that he has great collector behavior, great curator behavior, and is pretty active in the space, then you can start redirecting them to the right channels. You can start learning from the people that you think are important. You can see who's actually a beginner on the open web, who is making his first transactions. Well, maybe that person should be guided to a different channel. So the audience in our Discords could become a lot more identifiable, a lot more tangible. This is a little bit more of a creative one, but imagine that as an NFT enthusiast, you're a fan of generative art. You're a fan of amphibious creatures. You got the toads, you got, who else is in there, Pepe, and you start generating a verifiable credential that proves that you're actually a fan of that specific NFT niche. You could start gathering people around. You could get, you could set certain requirements to get that credential, and then start playing with it. It's up to you to see how creative you can get with these new Legos. Imagine you want to actually find an audience that this time is in it for the art. So you can have a conversation about what is fair. Can you ask people to meet certain requirements before they get into a whitelist that is a more durable audience, or that tries to attract a more durable audience? An audience that is a long-term holder, that has high asset quality, that shows characteristics of a collector or a curator profile. Those are the type of possibilities that are going to open up. Imagine you're hiring and you want to know who's in front of you. You want to get to know your talent pool. You want to make sure that they actually have Web3 activity. Well, from all of the available data sources, you can ask them to show the activity that they have participated in to make sure that they have deployed an NFT contract in the past, to make sure that they have been a governance participant, to make sure that they have a pretty high transaction history on chain. And it will make the whole conversation between you and your applicant so much easier, so much quicker. Imagine you want to support or reward the people in your community that have really been contributing. How do you check it? You could start checking how they are contributing to your subreddit. You could see who has been tweeting. You could see who has been contributing to your crowd loan. And all of those requirements could then make a quick filtering in the audience that is trying to get a hold of that airdrop. And the last one to close with is the following. So getting more insights in your NFT audience, getting a better idea of who's in front of you, it will help you with covering your complete demand curve. If we look at the audience demand curve, we could see on the what is it, left side for you guys, low demand for pretty high-priced NFTs, special NFTs that are not accessible for everyone. On the right side, we have the high demand, maybe lower priced NFTs that do see quite some volume. So as soon as you start to know who's actually in your community and you see who are the early starters, the beginners, how you could start activating them with certain airdrops. You could start helping them get ahead on their Web3 journey. Then as soon as you see who is actually building that community, who is engaging, who is active on your platforms, who can prove that they're active, you could start rewarding them with badges. You could level them up to an ambassador, to a community manager. But when you start recognizing who are your 1,000 true fans, what their aesthetics are like, and you get some more insights in what they're about, you could start a co-creation conversation. You could ask for their input on the next collection. And it's about then also getting to that highest tier where your super fans are located and create customized, tailored products and NFTs, tailored artworks for an audience that is really into the art that you are making, into the concept that you are bringing to this world. So that's a bit of an idea or a bit of a sense of what's to come when the identity layer gets added to our tech stack, and we want to help you with it. We're Litentry. We're going to help you with finding that consensus, setting up that conversation. We're trying to help you with finding a more durable audience and making your identity tangible without it being seen. Thank you. We still have a couple of minutes, so if anybody has questions, I'm happy to dig in. No questions?
Do you have any plan to tokenize? And then what do you think about tokenize?
When token, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. I want to know your perspective. About tokenize.
Sure, no, I get that. So Litentry has launched its own token, I think it was back in 2020. So that token is currently available on KuCoin, Binance, and how that token fits into our economy is in the following, that when an application or a dApp starts to request identity data about a certain user, it will most likely either for example, fund the request of that identity data, or a user might actually pay lit tokens to generate an on-chain verifiable credential. So it's actually you could see it as the gas fee to interact with our system, to generate these little identity snippets and fund the complete economy that is running there. Yeah, that's how it currently fits in.
To what extent do you need further advances in scaling technology to do this? Like, is the way that Litentry is approaching it, is it something where a lot of the transactions are on-chain and you're going to require like very cheap transactions? Are they supposed to be composable? I'm curious about that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a very good question. How should I answer that? So, when you're starting up with generating all of these on-chain credentials and generating these profiles, it could well be that there is a one-time generation event where you just combine all of the on-chain history that you have gathered in the past, including your Web2 accounts, and you just make sure that Litentry as a decentralized identifier gets access to that, or at least has access to the metadata where that data lives. So at that point, and in that generation event, you're generating a lot of credentials. You could generate bigger profiles, which then are composed of smaller credentials. So that means also that these smaller credentials could be shared later on. So you don't necessarily have to generate credentials on the spot each time. You could use credentials that are maybe 3 months old. But as well, an application or app could request or require that a credential is pretty fresh. If it, for example, wants a flash credential, then it requires the user to pay at that moment when he is logging in to the application. So there might be a difference between previously generated credentials that have then been paid for in a lump sum, or flash credentials that are paid for on the spot. So that makes a big difference in terms of traffic and throughput of our system. Yeah. Maybe I'll take the question from the guy behind you. Yeah.
Thanks. Is there a sort of sweet point for using these credentials and maintaining privacy? Because I'm thinking the more you use the product, say, the more privacy may go out the window, right? So if you've got over 9,000 Reddit Karma and you own this NFT and you're a professional in this space, it's quite a small pool, right? Is there a sort of sweet spot?
Yeah, very good question. What we're trying to do is we're trying to communicate or help you communicate with the lowest resolution possible. So if you would have 9,696 Reddit Karma, we're not going to put that. That could be, you could dox yourself by giving that type of information. So maybe we can start communicating in ranges. We could even turn it into labels and badges that just say like massive Reddit contributor. So by lowering the resolution, we can start avoiding that. Any more? You had another question? Sorry. Yeah, sure.
So for you as a token, then I think the user can be more speculative in your product, right? So how do you have any plan to control the speculative economy when you start the token economy? Or
I don't necessarily have a direct answer to that. As a product manager, I'm less focused on the speculative side and tokenomics of our products. I'm a bit more focused on the user interface, user experience side of things. But if you would like, I can definitely bring you in contact with one of our engineers who's mostly specialized on tokenomics side of things, and to see, because it's an interesting question, how to avoid speculation, how to, because we have a rather low token supply, we keep it limited, and yeah, it's a good question.
That's tough question.
Yeah.
So you start without a token, then you focus on user experience with your tool, something. Is that correct?
Yeah, all of the tokens have been issued already, or at least a large part of them, and we don't plan to create any more at this point. So we do forecast how that would be used in the actual economy when all of these tools become available. Yeah. Any more questions? No? All right, thank you for being here, guys.